Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Byolete podcast, the podcast where we discuss the science behind the brand. In this week's podcast, we're going to be discussing what Byolete is. So we're going to be giving you an insight into what the actual company is about and where it all began, where the ideas started from, and what we hope to achieve with starting this company. So we're back. It's actually exciting to be back, isn't it? We haven't done a podcast in how many months now? About a month, two?
Well, we released the one as a one-off, but yeah, we haven't done it for a while.
Properly. We've had a full day today of content, and so actually it's like a Saturday evening, it's really late, and we're sitting doing this, but it is good to be back. This week we're going to be talking about what Byolete is. So like you said, we did do a podcast a couple of weeks ago where we released it and said that we were changing direction, although it's very similar to what we have been doing in the sense that it all relates to it. We've just rebranded and we've actually now got a product. So do you want to explain what the product is?
So Byolete is an at-home testing kit, capillary testing, and we aim to bring out 5 panels. So the first one we're bringing out is called Prevent, and that's based on your cardiovascular health prevention. So that's involving your HbA1c and your lipid profile. Yeah. We're bringing out one called Prevent Plus, which is all of that with the addition of ApoB, ApoA, and the ratio between the two.
Because and LPA was one of them as well, wasn't it?
LPA as well, yeah. So these are not routinely offered on the NHS, and they give a greater depth and insight into cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
And then we are going to go into the realms of men's health. So with testosterone, sex hormone band and globulin, same with women's health. And then we're going to go into nutritional. So that's vitamin D, B12, folate.
Yeah, so I think from anyone who has maybe followed us on social media, you can see that we're very heavily focused on performance and sort of in the gym. And it's what we do every single day. And so I think we probably are targeting people who are already, invested in their health, so people who would typically go to the gym. However, it's not exclusively for those people, but all of those bloods that you've just mentioned are obviously important for anybody, but specifically people who are going to the gym. I think we're getting into an era now of where the health and wellness industry it's promoting more in-depth knowledge of your own body, isn't it? And really delving deeper, not just looking at aesthetics. And it's something that we've discussed for, a year and a half now since starting the podcast, where we've sort of advocated for the fact that how you look on the outside aesthetically doesn't always correlate with what's going on internally. And so I think, Byolete setting up this at-home capillary blood testing where we can give people a real good insight into what's actually going on was a perfect next step for us.
It is. And we want to make it clear that we are not a diagnostic and screening service, because that goes into other regulatory activities, but it just gives you information for you to act upon. That information that we are given. We're not trying to hard sell any programs after it, any supplements. We're just, like you just said then, a lot of people who present to A&E or the clinic later on in life don't have any set of data or blood results before then. So if you can go and get your bloods tested at home at the age of 30, 28, at least you can see the trends, baselines, and just see where your health's going, because a normal result or an abnormal result in their own right don't mean anything. It's just a measure within a population.
I think I just want to touch upon that, because for me that was one of the main reasons as to why I was passionate about setting up the company. But also I think it's important for probably people listening to understand, well, if we take the NHS for example, they don't offer sort of an MOT, they call it, where they'll get somebody in at the age of 50, where they'll do a full set of bloods, and screening for, like you say, cardiovascular health, they'll do the weight, they'll do the blood pressure, and so it never happens before. So why should people get it checked before? I think you just alluded to it, where you were saying that, if you do get it checked, you are seeing trends. But is there any other reason as for why people should get tested before then?
I just think because like you just said, a lot of health and wellness is changing. So we've went from this era of actually going to the gym, looking good, and now we're in a transition with High Rocks and all these hybrid games where we're trying to train to feel good.
Yeah.
And I think eventually it will come to this idea that you're not going to feel anything. It's preventative and it's like an insurance policy. So that's the era that we're trying to create.
Yeah.
There's brands out there like Whoop who are giving more personalized insights using devices, but that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Is that, believe it or not, you are going to exist past the age of 40, 50. And when you get to that age, are you going to be functional? What quality of life are you going to have?
Yeah.
And the only way you can't guarantee anything apart from death, but the only way you're going to increase your risk of or chance of being successful at that point in your life, it's by testing now, really.
I completely agree with that. And I think also what is important to point out as well is that actually we know that atherosclerosis, which is the build-up of plaque within an artery, actually is occurring from as young as the age of like your teens. And so people actually at the age of the population that we're trying to target, so, you know, late 20s to early 40s, this disease might already be manifesting. And, you know, like you say, if we can test it and see what is actually going on, you know, create these trends and give the advice on what we've been looking at for the past year and a half into how to lower your risk of cardiovascular disease, for instance, then, you know, it is beneficial in that, you know, so that's what I wanted to just sort of point out.
I wanted to say as well, what sets us apart from other companies that are already in the game. So you've got very big brands, I'm not going to name them, but they, in my opinion, don't have any identity. They aren't doing it themselves. And we want to bring that point forward, that because you look healthy on the outside, it doesn't mean you've got the internal health. And we're going to use me as an example.
I was going to say that.
So I look okay. I've got a six pack. I've got a decent muscle mass. I can do activities to a decent level, but I think
you're being quite modest, by the way, because you are you're very fit, and I think you're probably one of the strongest people that I know. Not that I want to toot your horn like any more
but
than
my
that, but
point
you are.
is that my blood results tell a completely different story. So I was diagnosed at the age of 10 with a rare form of diabetes. But if you looked at me, you couldn't tell that. But when I wake up in the morning, my fasting blood glucose is nearly double yours. You just can't see that from looking at someone's abs or body fat percentage. So every time I eat and all these things, insulin and all the other hormones and cascades are completely abnormal in my body. And then when we look at the cardiovascular side of things, you look at family history, we got the enhanced blood test that we're going to be offering, the ApoB. Mine again was in the 85th percentile. So only 15% of the population had a worse ApoB than me. When in consideration that, I don't know, my saturated fat, aerobic activity, body fat percentage are all in the
elite range.
Well, elite advanced range. And that's the point we're trying to get across, is that we don't know the answers. We're still trying to solve it with anyone else who's on that journey with us.
I think that's a really good point. And I think we mentioned that yesterday, where we were saying that actually, you know, we have a very good understanding of the science, and if you give us a scientific paper, there's a good chance that we will be able to decipher it and come to a conclusion as to what the paper, you know, what the conclusion was for it. And that's what we do on this podcast, is that we try and break down the science and then put it into a way that people can understand it. And like you say, we are literally on this journey with everybody else. So, you know, like we tested ourselves. I think you've tested yourself a couple of times now in terms of your biochemical testing. I've done mine last year. I'm due to get mine done again, which I will be getting done hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then based off that, there will be things like I can imagine that mine probably won't be as I hope, because I think I've been a lot stressed, you know, with setting the business up and stuff like recently. However, it gives me then a good, you know, baseline again to be like, okay, well, let's implement some changes and then let's test again. And so, you know, I think that's why it is so beneficial.
It is. We're going to be transparent with our own results on whatever platform people follow us on. But that's the thing I want to keep bringing up, is that people will have their sources of information that they go to, but not one person on this planet knows the ideal lifestyle to increase lifespan to a point where we're immortal, or you live in a high quality of life when you're 120 or 150. I know there are people out there trying it at the moment, but still not one person's been successful. So we just need to take it with a pinch of salt, and the first way of getting there is by biochemical testing.
So I think I just maybe just finish off the podcast. I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to touch upon. I don't know whether there was...
I think we'll keep alluding to things later
I think
on.
so. And I think I just wanted to say on like a final note that obviously we set this podcast up because we wanted to decipher the science and we wanted to put it in a way for people to understand, and so that they could go away and implement whatever they wanted to take from that into their own lifestyle. And I just want to say that that is what we will be continuing to do with this podcast. We're not going to be trying to sell you, our products at every opportunity that we get. Obviously, we will leave the link in the description box for every podcast that we do, but we do still want to create this podcast to be educational still. Obviously, by all means, if you do want to then delve deeper and go and get a biochemical test from us, then, by all means, go and do that. But I just wanted to point that out, that it's not just going to be a case of we're just constantly trying to sell stuff on this platform.
Yeah, and you didn't mention what happens after you get your results. We don't just sell a test, by the way. We obviously go back on, have a consultation with you to just let you know what the results mean. We've got the escalation pathways in place if anything were abnormal, and I believe through the labs we've used, you can then print off the results you've got and take that to an NHS GP where they can actually utilise that if you need be.
So I think that's probably concludes this episode. Thank you for listening if you got to this point. Like I've just said, then we will put the description or the website link in the description box, and then also we have our own Instagram account now where if you're like into yoga and Pilates, then you can follow me. If you're into more functional fitness, then obviously follow Lee. And then we also have our Byolete again, that'll be down in the description box below. But yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you at the next one.